All right, everybody. Welcome to episode number 15 of the Movement as Medicine podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Carr. I almost forgot what my name was. And I'm here with my lovely co-host, Brendan Rearick, on a Sunday evening for me, Sunday afternoon for him. And how you doing today, Brendan?
Great. I have a lot more energy than I did the last time we did this on Monday.
Well, it's because you took a nap
tired.
right before this, you told me.
I did take a nap. It was a good 45-minute nap.
That's the optimal nap length, the 30 to 45-minute nap. Once you start to go hour longer, like, you're really committing. And for you, at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But you got to stay up and watch the Celtics tonight, so
this is true.
That's actually good.
And
you'll have the energy.
And Rain's been staying up later, so we built Lego. We built her Harry Potter Lego. I built the train, and she's building the castle. So we stayed up till like almost 10 o'clock last night.
That's much past bedtime, I believe.
It is, but when you're building Legos, there is no bedtime.
That's true. Legos are the best. I think as an adult playing with kids, I don't think there's probably a better toy or play choice.
Yes, it is definitely my favorite activity. There's a huge following now, or a huge uptick of adults and Lego now creating adult sets for adults only, which is pretty cool. It's great.
Start get into the Lego community here.
That's what happens when you turn 30. Turn 30, you're now part of the Lego community.
One minute you're out at the bars partying, talking to girls, out with your friends, and then all of a sudden life comes at you fast. You're doing Legos in your living room. But
drinking a glass of wine.
That's the way it is.
2 glasses of wine.
So this week we got a great question from a gentleman named Ethan Duff. So thank you, Ethan, for sending in the question. And he asked specifically about how we program for adults and adult groups. I think probably in response to, I posted a video with my adult group, my 6:45 a.m., the big dogs, as we call them, at 6:45 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday group. I think he kind of responded to that, just asking about how we program for adult groups, kind of how we look at building the program, how we progress the program, and then how do we kind of develop devout, like, really good clients. I think I posted the group that I have, kind of some background. Most of them have been in the group for years now. They're pretty consistent group of, real consistent, about 6 of them, but we might range from, 10 to actually 12 on Friday this past week. People who kind of pass between different groups. And kind of how do you get that, like, devout adult group following that really kind of takes to training and wants to be there consistently. And so his question really, I think, at MBSC, how do we program for adult groups? And then also for you, how do you build training for your adults out at Train Smarter and Harder? So I think that's something we can probably talk a whole hour and then some about. And so we can kind of get right into it. And I know you don't really have groups in your garage, but you do have very consistent personal training clients. So, I mean, we're kind of looking at it from slightly different angles, but I think probably very similar philosophies.
Yeah, I did groups at MBSC for the 5 years that I was there, so I'm very familiar with the 5+ type training and programming. But yeah, here at Train Smarter, we mostly it's one-on-one. I do have a couple spouses that work out together, small groups of athletes, but really nothing over 3. 3's the largest group I do here. But yes, the philosophy is similar. It's just the methods change a little bit.
Yeah, and I think with adult groups specifically, one thing you have to realize is when you own a training facility, right, these people are paying for different price points, right? And with that price point comes different personalization and different programming strategies, right? If you have people who are paying for a one-on-one, the highest price point, they're going to have a full assessment, a full intake. The whole first session will probably be us going through their goals, going through a movement assessment, figuring out where they're at, and then building a program based around that. Similar situation if someone's paying for semi-private, where maybe there's 2 or 3 friends working privately with a trainer. We'll kind of build a program directly around their goals. And again, the price point is going to reflect that. But a vast majority of the people that we work with at MBSC are group training clients. And so this would be the lowest price point. And so again, the programming strategy is going to reflect that. These people may have done a one-on-one prior as an intake. If they're a new client and aren't familiar, we might recommend them to do a couple one-on-one sessions or an assessment beforehand, but maybe not. Also, they might just come into the group cold. And so what we need to do is to build a programming system that can take people off the street who maybe have never done anything like we do at MBSC before and never even really exercised before, and be able to integrate them into the overall population that might be really diverse. People who have been training for 10 plus years with us, people who might have injuries, people who might be former athletes, and then someone who's brand new. So you have to be able to build a system that is malleable and kind of generalized, especially to begin with. And then as you develop relationships with people in your group and within the training program, you can start to narrow around their specific interests, their specific goals, their specific limitations. And that's why we have a system like CFSC, or a programming system and a progression regression model that allows us to do that. And so I think sometimes it can be difficult for personal trainers who are used to small settings, one-on-ones, two-on-ones, to then go into a group setting. All of a sudden, it's like there's way too much going on around them, or they can't manage a large group of people in an efficient, safe, and effective manner, right? And so, like you said, you kind of went the opposite way. You went from a lot of groups to one-on-ones, which I think you probably feel like that's real easy, right? As opposed to going the other direction.
Yes. Well, and there's a business principle that your systems are operating, your operation changes in multiples of 3 and 10. So one-on-one, pretty simple. That's one system. That's one operation. It's just me. Then we get our first multiple of 3. So when I have 3 people, my systems need to change. And then when I get to 10, my systems need to change again. So that's going to be the MBSC system. And when I get to 30, then my systems need to change. When I get to 100, I'm doing 100. I'm working with 100 athletes at the high school I'm working with, so my systems there need to be different. So I guess I'm working in either the one-on-one or the 100 plus.
The two extremes.
The two extremes, and you're working there in between. So yeah, I love that principle, because the systems that you use for one-on-one are not going to work for 3, and the systems you work with 3 people is not going to work for 10. And as you mentioned, that's what led to Certified Functional Strength Coach, is the multiples of 10 or 3 plus, really. And it's not that that you can't use the same philosophy for everybody, but as you mentioned, the methods need to change, and the way we program is a little bit different than one-on-one. So I don't know, do you want to get into the programming aspect of things to start?
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of talk about that first, just so people, if they're not as familiar with group training, right, there's probably some smaller personal trainers, people who work in one-on-ones mostly listen to it. I think when they see, this is what a lot of debate on social media comes from, when they see programming, I'm like, oh, that's great, but can you do it with 10 people? Can you coach it with 10 people? I mean, all of our decisions when it comes to staff meetings, when we're talking about programming, like we've been going through the summer program for the athletes the last couple of weeks, and the question always comes back to, okay, can we coach it? Or do we have the equipment, or do we have the space? And so that's always the number one thing. And then with that, safety, because something might be safe in a one-on-one situation where you can give something a lot of attention, but might not be safe where you're like, oh, I have 10 people doing it at once. And so number one, that's got to be the first thing that you think about from there. And I think that goes perfectly into the first thing about programming that I want to talk about. And that is introductory program for groups, because like I mentioned, the price point and the volume of people is going to dictate how you program. In a one-on-one, everyone gets a thorough intake and assessment, and we have a very clear idea on day one how somebody moves what they can tolerate, what their history is, and what their potential capacity might be. But in a group setting, it's not necessarily going to be that way, and that's okay, because that's what they're signing up for. But we need to build a system that can take that person in safely and put them into a bucket. You're always talking about filling buckets. That is going to be safe and effective for them, and then we can slowly move them along, right? Because we don't have time to do a full assessment, nor are they paying for that. And so what we've done is kind of build this like 8-week or 6-week, I think it's 8 weeks now because the adult program's 4 weeks at a time instead of 3, 8-week intro program for our adults that essentially sets guardrails, provides an assessment, and gives them all the introductory patterns that are going to match up well with what the rest of the group is doing. Because we'll get to this in a little bit, but the adult groups are on like a 12-month rotating program, kind of with a similar structure month to month, but with different exercises or volumes or intensities subbed in. And then there's going to be an introductory program that is going to introduce them to all the basics: squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, low impact things. And then we can figure out, okay, where do we start to progress them, right? And that is really kind of where everything starts out for us in a introductory programming setting for a group.
So it's one program that is then adapted to the individual. It is not. So, for example, we'll use the number 10 when we talk about groups here, just for simplicity reasons, but it's not 10 individualized programs, right? So if they want an individualized program, you pay the higher price point for that, which we would call personal training. You might have a semi-private model where you're maybe up to 4 people, where you may write 4 programs. I would still go the what we call CFSC, but the adaptable program route, where I write one program and then adapt the program for them. So as you're saying, the first introductory program has goblet squat, TRX row, single leg reach, and you're going to progress or regress or give them challenges and options, as my daughter would say. You give them challenges if they need it, or you give them options if they're unable to do what is written on that introductory program.
I like that. Yeah. And so, like, for instance, if you look at someone, I had a new person this week, a trial person came in on Friday, and he walks into, I had a group of 12 people. He was the 12th. And the other 11 have all been here for years, right? So I'm like, oh, here we go. And but the nice thing is they all kind of know what they're doing. So in the first block, they were all doing swings. And so I'm like, oh, this guy has never done any of this before, so I'm not going to have him swing. And so we just did hip hinges, right? It's still a swing, a deadlift, a hinge, a bridge. It's all the same hip dominant pattern. And so he was, in the warm-up while they were doing hurdle jumps, he was doing box jump on a little box. Same pattern, same program, different progression or regression. When they were doing swings, like I said, he was hinging. When they were doing single leg squats, he was doing a split squat. And so our intro program is built in a way that it's just a regressed version of what the rest of the group is doing, and they're at a higher volume. They were actually doing a density circuit, so it was like, hey, as many rounds as they could in 12 minutes. I'm like, hey, you're doing 2 sets of 5. And that was fine, because for him, I didn't want him limping out of there. I don't want to come see him walking on Monday being like, oh, everything hurts, because I got plenty of time to make it more difficult for him, because ideally he'll be a long-term client. And so what you should do if you are going to plan groups, like Brendan said, is don't make 10 individual programs. Make one program and then write regressed versions and progressed versions, so you can accommodate the wide range of people who are in there. And don't worry about the people on the far ends of the bell curve, right? The really, really regressed person, that might be someone who you're like, hey, I really think that you need to do personal training for a little bit. And we have those people. I'm like, hey, we can't put this person into a group. Or that person who like really loves to train and they're going to be bored, or they're like, hey, I really want to do X, Y, Z. Hey, you probably need personal training as well, right? Worry about the middle part of the bell curve. What do we always say, Brendan? What's our number one rule? The 80-20, correct?
You beat me to it. I was going to say, you're programming for the 80% of people. So you want to cast a really big net to catch as many fish as you possibly can, but you won't catch the fish, the little fish and the big fish. You'll just catch a lot of the middle fish, which is what we're trying to do. Again, that's the price point they're paying for it. They're paying $20 per workout. That's the nature of group training. If they want to pay $100 workout and I'm programming them like that, well, I'm not a very good trainer. I can be more specific. I can provide more value when it's an individual. And on what you said, so what you mentioned that you had a group of 11 people who are or returners or people who have been coming for a long time, and you have one person's new. So what a program that has regressions and progressions built into it, it makes sure that nobody gets left behind, right? So that's the new person. They will not be left behind because there is and then the people who have been coming won't get held back, right? So because you have those progressions and everybody is progressed safely. So you don't have really any injuries at all. Occasionally there's an injury you can't avoid, but for the most part, for the amount of volume that we do at MBSC, we didn't have a lot of injuries. So as you use the example of kettlebell swing, the people who aren't being held back, so the 11 returners are doing kettlebell swing. And the way we challenge kettlebell swing is we go heavier, we do more volume, we do more swings, we go to one-arm swing, right? So we have a lot of progressions for that. Now, the person who is new, who we don't want to leave behind, but they're still within the group, they're going to deadlift, hinge, or bridge, which are all the precursors or the regressions of kettlebell swing. So they still fit inside the group. They can still do the pattern of hinging. It's just what version are they going to do? And it's a really quick switch for the coach if they have something like this built out. And this is all built into that one program you made. So you don't need to write 12 programs or write a new program for this brand new individual. You're just taking what you're already doing that day and modifying it for the individual. And again, you can modify that to be harder or to be more challenging, or you can modify that to be easier with a regressed version of whatever it is everyone else is doing.
Yep. And I think, too, part of one thing that I realized, too, is when you have new people come into the gym, you just kind of take for granted our programming structure, like how we look at building an exercise program, like kind of our culture and our philosophy, like the overall arching theme to training, where most people like have no idea. When they first walk into the gym and they're like, where do I start, right? When you have everybody in a group setting and you have like an intro program and they're probably doing a little bit less volume, it helps them kind of understand the overall training philosophy and culture of the gym. And the people who are already in the group, those 11 others that were there, already know that. And they've seen enough newbies come in before. So they can kind of keep going on their own. I can just kind of give them some instruction. Whereas I can be like, hey, after the foam rolling, we go over here to the warm-up. And then after the warm-up, we go and throw the med balls. And then they're like, where do I go after the med balls? I'm like, then we go in the other room. And they start to figure out, like, okay, this is where I go. This is the order of operations. Half of the new person's experience is just finding their way around the facility and understanding, okay, after I lift weights in this pod, I go to this pod. Then I go to this pod. And, like, you're kind of, as they're going with the group, like, they're kind of going with the herd. And, like, getting them to figure that out, that is even a big part of the first couple sessions. And if you kind of keep them with the group rather than trying to give them an individualization, then they learn that whole system a little bit quicker. And then they kind of be enveloped into the group in the community a little bit quicker, which is going to help keep them there and make them want to be a part of it, right? Like this guy by the end of it was like shooting the shit while everyone was doing conditioning. And like, I'm like, okay, he's already like talking to everybody in the group and like kind of following along with everyone. He's going to stick, right? because it's still a sales process, especially for new people. You want them to feel like they're part of it, right? And so if you can easily have programs that run parallel to one another, then these people don't feel like they're like the one black sheep in the group off to the side. They feel like they're with everybody else and they're part of the community. And hopefully that helps them stick. And that's really what we're trying to do from a training standpoint and a business standpoint, right?
Right. Well, and the worst thing you could do is be like, yeah, you're just going to go over here and ride the bike. Well, we're all over here doing this because I can't help you today. Right. Or, hey,
they're like the guy outside the window at the party, like looking in, wishing that they were in there with everybody.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is our recipe. So it's just like cooking. The first time you try to cook something, you're like, what do I need? How much of this? What is an ounce? What's a tablespoon? What's a teaspoon? What's the difference? Right? Like, how do I navigate myself around the kitchen here? But once you bake, Jenny and Rain just made banana bread. So once you make a couple banana breads, I know I woke up from my nap and had 3 slices of banana bread.
Oh, guess what? My mother-in-law's upstairs, and I'm going to go make a request after this.
But once you've done that a few times, you don't necessarily need to get the book out. You don't need to go find all of those things. Rain, I'm on a podcast right now. Sorry, babe. Yeah, you don't have to go find all those things. And now, like you're saying, this individual comes in and they like know where to go. They know they know how the process is going to work, what we're going to do that day in a general sense. And to that point, the first 4 to 5 workouts don't have to be these crazy intense, let's make you really sore, let's get you indoctrinated and crush you type workouts. Like, let's just enjoy the day. Let's enjoy the process. Let's learn and understand what it is we do here and how we operate. And then let us learn a little bit about you and who you are and how you work. And it doesn't have to be this exact program. Like, if they miss a few sets because the group is moving on, not a big deal, right? If they can't do XYZ that day, or they have an injury that you need a little bit more time to think about, you say, hey, let's just wait a few minutes. We'll work on this the next time you're in here. For right now, I want you to just take a little break, maybe introduce yourself to the group or go take a seat in the lobby for a second, and then I'll come get you for the next density circuit or whatever it is.
I think that's a good point, a really good point, because I think sometimes trainers have such a sense of urgency around providing a training stimulus, but the number one thing you should be thinking about early is getting them to feel comfortable, getting them to feel like they're part of the group, getting them to feel like they want to be there again. And because you can always just keep training them, right? But if you screw up the relationship piece early on, or that part, integrating them into the training early on, then they might not come back.
Right. You want to be thinking about 12 workouts from now. So on day 1, I'm thinking about workout number 12. And that's how I'm going to play my hand. That's my sales pitch, right? Like, is like, I act as if you are going to come back in on Thursday. So it's Tuesday, like, hey, when you come back in on Thursday, we'll do this. And you might feel a little bit sore, but that's okay, because if we do this for the next 2 weeks, and the next 12 sessions, and I keep talking like that, like this is a long-term thing on day 1. And then at the end, of course, I leave it up to them, like, hey, if you want to continue, but I act as if this is a client for the next 12 sessions, and I program as if. And so, for example, like you're talking about group training, one-on-one training, the first session, I don't do a functional movement screen. It's really like a meet and greet. Like, hey, like, come to the gym. Like, you need to know where to park outside of the gym, because I live in a residential area and you can't just park wherever you want. This is the gym. This is who I am. Welcome. I mean, they are nervous. I'm a little bit nervous because I don't know what I'm walking into, right? I mean, I might have some information speaking to them beforehand, but the first session isn't even an assessment. It's an assessment from a standpoint of we're getting to know each other, but it's not a physical assessment really.
No.
We might foam roll a little bit. We do some TRX rows. We do some sled pushes because sleds seem to be the number one sales tool because you don't have sleds at the 24-hour fitness down the street, or the Planet Fitness doesn't have sleds. So I try to give them a little bit of taste of things that they might not have ever done or seen before and make them feel a little bit athletic. So it's really, it's a meet and greet, and it's an entire sales pitch for the first session. The second session is when I start diving deep into programming and functional movement screens. So that's,
you're like, come on over
one-on-one.
and look at my torque tank over here.
Look at my torque tank. Have you ever seen one of these? I bet you haven't. Have you ever seen a Kaiser machine in somebody's garage? Oh, you don't know what a Kaiser is? Well, this is what it is. No, but really, like that's the first session. It's not like you said. It's not this urgent. I need to make you type sore session. I'm thinking 12 sessions from now.
Yeah, and then now we'll go to 12 sessions from now, right? So once you start to integrate them and you kind of figure out, hey, because early on they might not say they have injuries, and then within a couple weeks you're like, oh, you do have some injuries, or there are some things that you have trouble with, and then you can start to integrate them. What we do is we integrate them into the cycle of the 12-month program. And so Dan McGinley, who writes all of our adult programs, does a really amazing job because he has a lot to contend with, especially in the summer, because the adult program has to line up with the athlete program because they're going to be running concurrently. So we can't be moving equipment and changing equipment. Like, they have to kind of work together. He does a great job with that. And what we do in this 12-month adult program is each month we'll have different focuses. And so we might have a month of higher volume, more hypertrophy work. We might have a month of more max strength work where it's much lower reps and higher intensity. We'll have a month of contrast type training where it's strength work paired with power work. Right now we're doing some density training, which is great. So we're doing like 12 minutes, as many rounds as you can. We'll do tempo phases. Everybody hates that. Whenever we do the isometric or eccentric months, everyone's cursing Dan. They're looking for Dan in the gym. They're saying, the other day someone was like, who wrote this shitty program? They're also mad, but because they were so mad at him. But it's like we introduce them to different stimuluses, right? And the same thing with the conditioning. We'll do different phases of conditioning that kind of go with that, where there's a little bit more longer, extensive bike work, or circuits at the end, or running, or sleds. Dan does a very good job, writing 12 months of different focuses that kind of move throughout the year. And so it provides a varied stimulus, so they keep making progress. Like, we're always trying to push the load or push the volume, and it keeps them entertained. So there's something different, right? Part of these people who have been coming in my adult group, some of them have been at the gym for one guy in my group has been there for Jim has been there for longer than I've worked there. So he's been there for 16, 17 years at this point. He's literally seen it all. And so being able to keep them entertained as well as training towards a goal is really important. And so I would tell people, if you're going to train a high volume of people years at a time, try to think about a year ahead and think, okay, what are we going to work on each month? And how can those things kind of flow easily into one another so that the group keeps making progress?
I'm just writing notes over here.
That's right. Well,
now I don't deal with the same logistics that you do,
Yes.
obviously,
No.
being in my garage and training one-on-one or groups of 1, 2, or 3. So I don't have that nightmare. And I used to have that nightmare when I used to write the program. I used to be Dan McGinley, and I messed that up a lot. And I didn't even have it as bad as Dan because I only had one bay to work with. So I think 9,000 or 12,000 square feet, whereas Dan has to do it for 36,000 square feet. So I didn't even have it as bad as Dan did when I was at Boyles. So for me and the people I train, and going one-on-one, I call it seasonal training. And everybody is in a different seasons, and seasons generally last 3 months, so 12 weeks. And so seasonal training for me is like here it's let's get ready for ski season, right? So that's the fall. We're getting ready for ski season. Then we get into our holiday season. So that's where we're navigating the schedule and just trying to maintain almost. That's almost when people are in season here as an adult is holiday season. Is I'm in my in season. And then there's let's get ready for beach season, right? That's springtime. And then summer comes and now we're in season again. So because summer and holidays, I always have a little bit of a drop off, whether that's down to 2 days a week or they're gone for weeks at a time, myself included. I go away. I'm seasonal as well. So building for ski season and building for beach season. So spring and fall are really like when we hammer those whatever goals that we have. And then athletes. So when I work with athletes, we have our off season, which is mostly like rebuild and strength training. Then we have the second phase of the off season, which is going to be power and speed. And then we have the final off season or phase of off season, which is going to be conditioning or preparation for the sport. And then in season, so that's just maintenance training. And I might see an athlete once or twice a week. I might not see them at all. So I'm mostly working in seasons here, whereas opposed to where you're trying to give a little bit more entertainment factor by, I think it's like every month you have a different phase or a different season, right? So because I'm working one-on-one, I don't necessarily need to have as many phases or seasons as you do. But that's kind of how I think, and each individual season is different. So like whatever their goals are is the next season that we'll go to. So that's kind of how I think and operate. So we really started with, I wrote this down before, we really started with micro, right? So the micro session is the 60 minutes that we get you for, right? So that's the recipe. That's what are we trying to do in those first few sessions for the first hour? Now we're going macro. So macro being like, what's a week look like? What's a month look like? What do the years look like? And then what do the decades look like? Because like you said, Jim's been there for a decade. So how do you keep someone coming for a decade? And so we went from micro and now we've built out a little bit of the macro.
Yeah, and in that idea about people coming for long periods of time, I think what you need to do is identify the type of client that they are. You know, there's going to be some people who we call, the check the box clients, and those are great. Those are people that pay your bills, but they don't necessarily have like a really dedicated interest in training. They just come because they probably like you. They like the gym. They like the culture. They like the people there, and they know they feel better, but they're not really particularly interested in building their bench press or building a huge deadlift. And this is where the disconnect with like the real hardcore powerlifter strength coach crowd is. They think like everyone is into that. They're really not if you actually train people. But they come because they might want to just feel better and do a little bit. And they'll push a little bit as they go, but they're not particularly trying to be, an Adonis, as we would say.
They just don't want to die young. Honestly,
that's great.
They know exercise is healthy for them, that they should do it. Yeah. And this gets them to do it. And that's the person that's not going to do anything extra on their own. They might go for a walk or two, but they ain't going to touch a weight. And thinking that they are or wait, honestly, it's a waste of time of trying to push them or trying to get them to. You're likely just going to turn them off. Yes.
And so like I have a whole bunch of those, and those are the people that just follow that adult program to a T. Whatever we say, they do. They feel good. If I have to make adjustments around injuries, whatever, or we do, but there's very little adjustment for preference or goals, right? Because that's what they want. That's what they're paying for.
Right.
Whereas within that same exact group, my 645 group, I have a handful of people who really like training. Like they read about training, they follow other Instagram accounts, they want to build their lifts, and that's great too. And I can train these people concurrently, right? Like I got Steve, the barber, and I got Fitzy, who are in the group, who really love training. And I'll be like, hey, you know what? We're going to trap bar deadlift, and we're going to each week we're like trying to build our trap bar. And like Steve, particularly in a bench, he'll come in on the weekends. I bench pressed with him today, and he wants to build that. And so we sub those things in. And like you said, it's not like a whole new program when the rest of the group is doing like alternating incline dumbbell bench, which is great for them. Steve's like, let's load up the barbell. I'm like, all right. And we're doing another bench cycle, and that's fine, right? His joints move, he can tolerate the stress, and that's what he wants to do. And so being able to keep that client and develop that client long term is identifying his goal, which is very different than the other people in the group. And because if I'm not able to progress and regress within the group for him, I might lose him, and that's okay. And so I'm able to manage these different personalities as long as I have a system that's malleable to allow me to do that, right? Whereas also I have another person in the group who's like a recreational runner, like runs a lot, and with them, I need to be able to, maybe pull back some volume in training because they're like, hey, I'm working towards a race, my weekly volume's going way up, so I'm like, hey, we're only doing 2 sets today, we're gonna do more power stuff, and I just progress and regress there. And so as you work with groups more, you'll be able to be more malleable with the program as they go and be able to still train all these people in the same 60 minutes together, as your ability to coach and manage and skill improves.
So you got the check the box people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who are going to be the majority of the group training.
Definitely,
types.
Without question.
Majority. Then you got the type A. So these are your Fitzies and the Steve the Barber who like will do stuff on the outside. They are interested in the process. They want to be part of the process. They engage in other fitness type activities in their own time. And then you've got the type AA people who are like you said, your competitive runners who you almost need to reel in. Like your people who are training 7 days a week but they want to crush themselves in every group class. So there's a handful, and I'm going to say that there's like in group training that probably 60% of your people are going to be this check the box type people. You're going to have your 20% of your type A's who, I mean, that's really your ideal, like bread and butter. These are the people that you can, they're almost like us a lot like us. And they're really easy to train and work with because they're not going to overdo it, but they also want to be a part of the process. And then you got your 20% who are type AA, who are going to be like, you're going to have to be constantly reeling them in to avoid injury and to, not ruin like the gains or the benefits that they're getting from strength training because they're trying to do too much.
Yeah, the way I see it is we have, like you said, your check the box types, the overwhelming majority. You have people who are very training focused, like their number one concern is lifting weights, right? Yeah. That's the type of client that you love to have as a strength coach and a like personal trainer. And I think that's the ideal avatar that like the meathead thinks exists, but they're really not the majority. They're the minority.
We are former meatheads, so
exactly.
That's probably why that's why we enjoy working with them the most.
And then
biasly.
There's the person who has an interest in physical activity outside of the gym. Your runners, your diehard golfers, your cyclists. Training is just a means to an end, right? So those are like your three groups. They don't really care about what you do, as long as it makes them better at the thing they care about. And so I'll have in a group, I have those three kind of personalities, right? Like Steve and Fitzy just want to get jacked. And then I have like a guy like Matt, who's a cyclist. Like he really just wants to be great at cycling. And he's a great lifter, a great athlete, but everything we do is like, it's not about the most volume possible. It's not about the most load as possible. How do we make you a better cyclist? And then there's the rest of the people just kind of go along their way, right? And so you have to be able to manage those three people. And again, if you have a system, I'll tell you, we do it every day. You did it for years, managing all these different kind of personalities and focuses. And so I think it all comes back to what we said before. If you have a scalable system and you write a starting program, you're going to be, as you get more skillful at communicating and managing your energy in a group, you'll be able to manage these kind of different personality groups over the course of that 60 minutes and over the course of their entire training life with you as well.
I think this would be a really good perform better talk for you, is training the 3 different types of, you got the check the box,
yes.
you got the people who just want to get better at lifting, and then you got the people who want to who lift to get better at something else.
That's a really good, I like that. Yeah, see, look at that. I'll give you credit next year.
Look at that. Yeah, I invented it.
I'll say at the start, I'll say, this is my presentation, say, training the 3 different clients in a group setting. Credit to Brendan Rearick. He taught me everything I know. I was pretty jealous seeing the Perform Better in Orlando this weekend.
I was, too. I was watching a bunch of the Perform Better filmed, a bunch of the speakers asking them why, or what it felt like to be back at the summit. So I can't wait to go back in a month.
Oh, you're going to Chicago. Orlando is
I'll
like kind of
Chicago.
Selfishly my favorite because it's the first one of the year, and it's just a great setup down there with the pool and the pool bar and
you don't need to
everything
leave
down there. No,
and everything's
great.
across the street. Yeah.
But I'll see you in Providence. Not you. I'll see everybody else.
Yeah, no, I'll see everybody else in Chicago, and thankfully I won't see you. So. Okay, so we discussed group size, we discussed micro and macro, we discussed the 3 different personality types. Now, what was the final part of his question? Remind me. It was about how you convince these people
he kind of asked about, like, how do you create clients who are really great, like, long-term clients, and we kind of touched on that a little bit, but I think, like, kind of what sometimes people identify as like a great client is someone who really wants to train or is really dedicated, and you have to understand that a lot of that is intrinsic to the individual, right? Like you said, a great client to me could be the check the box type. We have plenty of those people who, just want to be healthy, and they've been coming, they keep the gym open. Like you said, that's the majority. They come 3 days a week. You look at them and you wouldn't look at them on the street and be like, that person's jacked and fit, but they're healthy and they come consistently to take care of themselves, right? Again, being a great client doesn't mean you're like really have really low body fat or really strong. It means you're healthy and you come consistently and you're part of the gym culture. And so the way to create great adult athletes, right? Adult clients, is, and really from a business standpoint, I think is more importantly, is 1, developing great relationships with them. 2, incorporating them and finding people that fit into your gym culture. If you have a strong, palpable gym culture, the people who don't fit will leave, right? And that's good for you and good for them. 3, buying into their goals, because they're probably not going to be the same as yours. Again, a great client, a diehard client who's going to come consistently, might not care about the same things as you, but they don't have to. That's why they're a client, right? And then number 4, you need to keep pushing them. Even if they're like a, check the box type, someone who just wants to come consistently, you're still going to move them along as they go. And I think if you can do those 4 things, then you'll have someone who, 1, is a great patron of your business, is a part of the culture there, and it's going to be a part of your business for a long time. And most importantly, they'll be healthy for it, right?
Right. I mean, from a coaching perspective, as you said, I don't want people to think that after this discussion that we only want to work with the people who lift like that. Like, again, that's 20% of our people. We wouldn't be good trainers, and we wouldn't be in business for very long if we chose to only work with those people. What I love about working with those people is that there's like this working out or this fitness or lifting connection, right? What I love about working with people who want to check the box is we have a different connection. Like, that's the person I can talk about, like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Like, that's the person I can go drink a beer with. Like, I love working with check the box people because it's just about, like, I'm just here to enjoy myself and as much as I can, because I hate fitness, but I'm here and I know I need to be here. And I enjoy being around you and the rest of the group. I just don't enjoy fitness. And I can appreciate that because fitness sometimes is a pain in the ass. But you got to do it. So, and then like working with the type AA people, I don't want people to think like that. Like I don't want to work with those people that are like they're bad people. No, I love working with those people because there's an actual like goal and there's a result that like we can see, like your wattage got better on the bike. Like, oh my God, like that's awesome. Like that's so cool. And then like you placed third in an event that you were in last year. Right? Like, so each different subset of personality types that you work with just allows for a different relationship to build, but you can build a relationship with all three of those groups, 100% of those people, and they can be a part of your culture and system in just their own unique way. Just don't write them an individual unique program.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot. It's a lot of work for little return. So you make one large or one session, one program, and then navigate everybody from each individual exercise. And I mean, I still do this with my groups of 3 and my one-on-one clients, I can be a little more specific, but I still, for the majority of the time, am using my progressions and regressions. It's just I have a better place to start based off of my assessment with a one-on-one individual. Whereas in a group session, you're kind of stuck with wherever the group is beginning. So, but that's not to say that I don't use these systems. I use them every day.
Well, the truth is, like, if you have a universal philosophy and principles that you believe in, all the programs should look pretty similar anyways. They shouldn't look that much different, whether you're working with someone who's just there to work out, you know, and feel a little bit better, someone who really cares about lifting weights, or someone who's training for a sport. If you have a universal belief system, the program should be fairly similar. They might be at different volumes or intensities or slightly different exercise selections, but by and large, you should be able to put them all next to each other and be like, these don't look too much different. And so save yourself a lot of time and energy and start in the same place and individualize after, as opposed to trying to individualize beforehand, because you're going to be pulling your hair out.
Yeah.
You know,
take the CFSC.
Exactly. That's what we're here for. It's worked pretty well for us. So I think we covered that question pretty adequately. It was pretty good. And you gave me a Perform Better topic out of it. So, you know, I'll work on that this year.
There you go. I made something similar years ago about
here we go.
But not as eloquent as what you, because I like I said, type A, type AA. Yours is better. Go with your. I invented it though, so
you're the resident inventor. You're a regular old Thomas Edison, as I've always said.
No, Nikola Tesla.
No, there you go. The crazy guy.
The real inventor. Edison just stole everything. All right.
Let's take our book recommendations for the night.
All right.
Who you want to go first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, I got it. I'm going with Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And you want to talk about navigating multiple relationships? This is the book for you. I love.
You mean if you're like multiple romantic relationships?
No. I meant multiple training relationships. But training relationships, they can get romantic. So,
oh Jesus!
No, when you're navigating a large group of people and a large group of personalities, you need to be a chameleon with your relationship and your communication style. Chris Voss was actually he was a hostage negotiator for the FBI, but his principles and his examples are, well, the stories, just the stories themselves are phenomenal. Like, I could just read the book and listen to the stories, but his principles and the actionable items in it are really, really good. He takes you through like negotiating your salary. He takes you through persuasion. So like, right. So we're always trying to persuade our clients to do something they don't necessarily want to do, or give us money they don't necessarily want to give us. So we are negotiating and persuading daily. So Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He also has a master's class that Jenny and I watched, which was very, very good. So he has an entire video series on master's class about the book. But I've read the book twice, and I usually go back and read the book when, for example, when I know I have a negotiation coming up or something like that, I'll go back to those chapters and reread them. So Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
My dad recommended that book to me. And then I read it right after. Yeah.
Did he invent it too?
Yeah. He wrote it. He's actually Chris Voss. That's his pen name.
His pen name.
But that's a very valuable book, and you're right. Just the stories alone, like, are really interesting to listen to. It's not. You would think like kind of a communication or negotiation book might be boring, but it's not. Good read. Completely unrelated. You and I like that we always have completely unrelated topics in books. So my book, this is very good. Again, something that might seem boring. How We Learn to Move. By Rob Gray, A Revolution in the Way We Coach and Practice Sports Skills, is very good. And so Rob Gray is a PhD professor at Arizona State University, and he teaches like motor skill development and learning. And so it talks about how like the traditional way that we teach people how to learn, how they learn to do things, like really blocked practice, right? Like where you practice the same skill over and over and over, and there's lots of cones and guardrails, isn't the best way to master a skill or develop creativity around a skill. And how the research shows that moving towards things like random practice, right, as we know, are a more valuable way to learn a skill reliably and provide creativity in that. And it's just really well written for a motor learning book. It could be very boring, but he does a very good job of writing it in a way that's interesting, also in a way that's practical. Very similar how I talked about that book, Force, by Dan Cleather recently. It's very applicable to people who work in either sports skills, sports development coaching, or sports performance coaching. Very interesting, and it just helps you think about either the way you design practices, the way you design skill development sessions, or the way you teach exercise, to make it more efficient, obviously more enjoyable also for kids, right? Kids don't want to run around the same cone drill 20 times in a row. They want to do things with their friends to help them develop those skills. And so it's very, very good book. And it's, again, a fast read. I think it's, let me look at the page count. I think it's like 200 something pages, 220 pages or something like that. So you rip through it pretty quick.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Highly recommended. That book, the one that you just showed and the last one that you showed, looked pretty simple and then very similar. Yeah. Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
I thought it was the same author. There you go.
Yeah,
Force
very
and
similar.
Move.
How We Learn to Move. Yeah, both very good. I would highly recommend both. I think if you're someone getting into the field and you're kind of bored by a traditional textbook approach about motor learning or biomechanics, those are really good reads that are very practical based for people to take on.
Awesome. All right. Well,
yeah.
What do we got coming up? Level 2s. Still got a lot of level 2s.
Yeah, we have a level 2 in New York City, our first ever level 2 in New York City coming this weekend. Then we have, after that, the next one, I believe, is
Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Woburn.
Nah,
Woburn
Chicago's
Chicago.
after. Yep. And then we have a bunch of events. We have Cincinnati level 1, New York level 1, Utah level 1. We have a ton of events coming up. Go to certifiedfsc.com. But then also we have some CFSE courses coming out pretty soon. We're going to be changing kind of our recertification format, and we can get into the details on that kind of more formally through the CFSE platform. But there's going to be mini courses. I just kind of been working on the finishing touches of the exams for my functional training anatomy course to go with the book. I know you have some courses you're going to be putting on there, as well as the rest of our staff. So if you're looking for some continuing education, whether you're a CFSC looking to recertify, or you're someone from outside of the CFSC community just trying to get some CEUs, those will all be available soon, right? Why don't you share what you're putting together, Brendan?
Well, I have exercise checklists, which is something I produced a few years ago, but I'm repurposing it for this educational course kind of upgrade or upload that we're doing amongst the group. I will also be doing practical programming, which I need to get on and start and finish that, because programming is the number one question we get, and how to do it and why we pick the sets and reps that we do. So I want to dive deeper into that and make that a little mini course. And then another mini course I'm going to do is creating a system for culture. So those will all be coming out. Exercise checklists will be launched in the fall here with everything else, and then the other two will come later. But nice. I know we have communication, we have combine training, we have habit building, we have nutrition. So be on the lookout for mini courses.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so one thing I'll note about the functional training anatomy course is I partnered with the people at Muscle in Motion. They do an amazing job. If you're familiar with them, their YouTube channel is unbelievable. Their Instagram's unbelievable. And they do these animated, anatomically drawn exercise videos where like they put the muscles on the people doing the exercises. I don't know how they do it, but it's pretty cool. And so what they did is while I'm talking, like I am now, they kind of put the demonstrations of the things I'm talking about next to me. It's pretty unbelievable.
Sweet.
And then also kind of comes with a bunch of reference sheets so you understand what muscles are working, what ranges of motion we're looking for, things like that, so you can apply better exercise selection. And so they really did an unbelievable job. So I'm just kind of putting the finishing touches on that. We want to get that out soon, and then we're going to be rolling out all these other courses as we go behind them. So keep an eye out for those things. And hopefully if you attend a CFSC course over the next few months, one of us will see you there, or at Perform Better.
Perform Better, Chicago. I believe it's July 16th.
Providence.
August what?
Mike and I will be in Providence. Yeah. The last weekend
it's the end of August. The last week in August.
Yeah. Yep.
Who knows? July 16th.
Yep,
I'm July 16th. You are August 26th and 7th.
Yep. You betcha.
All right.
Well, that's about an hour. Good job today.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ethan. I hope we answered it.
Go Celtics. Have a good night.
See ya.